Hi guys, welcome back to the Strong Girl Gossip podcast and welcome to episode 4.
Episode 4 already. I'm actually so proud of our consistency.
Consistent queens.
Yes. But this episode, guys, it's going to be a quick fire episode. So we're going to talk about your daily habits to support your training, but not just your training, your overall wellness as well.
Not only are we going to be talking you through kind of what you should be implementing into your routine, but how to as well, and giving you tips, especially at the end, on kind of how to make new habits in your life. Because it's not always easy, right? Because it takes a long time to build a habit.
And you've got to rinse and repeat them time and time again for them to really cement into your day-to-day routine. So let's get kick-started. We're going to start, first of all, with hydration. So your water intake. I know there are so many of you listening right now that just sip on beverages all day, tea and coffee. And you might be sat there thinking, yeah, I hear you, but there's water in tea and coffee. So what are you talking about? But actually, we need extra hydration outside of that. So if you're a tea and coffee drinker, that's fine, fabulous. But just make sure that you are also prioritising just your water intake as well. And for anyone who's listening, who's thinking, but I don't like the taste of water, get yourself some sugar-free squash.
No excuse.
Buy water if you need to. And there's always a way that you can make sure that you get your intake in.
100%. And with your coffee and tea as well, like the caffeine in it, like cancels out the water, just in case anyone was wondering why. So now you know why there's no excuse. And I think as well, something important with water especially is if you are only drinking like 1 glass of water a day at the moment, don't make it your goal to drink 3 litres or whatever it is. Make it your goal to drink just an extra glass. Always start small and then you can build from there.
And this will be a theme throughout all the habits we talk on today. It's like set the bar low and slow it. Finishing on a tip for how can I make it easy to get my water intake? Buy yourself a pretty water bottle. Make sure it's like, a relatively good size. So maybe if your goal's a litre, buy yourself a litre water bottle. Then you just know once you've drank that 1 water bottle for the day, that's your goal completed. So the easier you can make it for yourself, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Going on to something that's really going to help your recovery outside of the gym. So your sleep. Like, I know a lot of us love to binge Netflix until the early hours, maybe. I don't know. But getting your sleep in, especially on days that you've trained, getting your 8 hours will just make such a difference to how you, A, show up to the gym, B, recover from the gym, and then C, get back into the gym after having that better recovery. Because I'm sure you've had it before when you feel so sore from a workout maybe a couple of days ago or whatever it was, that you just don't want to go back in and you feel like your body just won't be able to move. So getting that sleep in to help your muscles recover will really, really help. Yes, go on.
Just like a lack of sleep has a knock-on effect to literally everything. Like if you are tired, your motivation's going to be down. Like you're not going to want to show up to your training sessions. You're not going to want to eat well. You're not even going to want to perform well at work. Like it has such a domino effect to not just your training and your wellness, but everything. So not just getting a good amount of sleep, but also good quality as well. So
absolutely.
Fire tips could be just make sure that you've got, a super dark, quiet, cool place to sleep. Like screen time, a big one, like you was just saying. We love to binge Netflix and everything before we go to bed, but just make sure that you have like a cut-off time. And I know that we've gone past the stages of having a bedtime, but if my biggest advice and tip that I could give you would be to set yourself a bedtime, then that's what it would be. Like set yourself a bedtime and a wake-up time. For me personally, I go backwards for my alarm. So if I know that I've got to be up at X, I will make sure that I, minus 7 to 8 hours before that, and make sure that I'm going to bed and giving myself the best chance to get in.
That's exactly what I do.
Yeah.
And I think as well, if you just pay attention, like simply to, how many hours of sleep did I get last night? Think about what time you went to sleep and what time you went up. How is that making me feel? As soon as you start paying attention to, I don't feel great today. I had 5 hours sleep. It will make you want to get the sleep because you know that you show up better for yourself on more sleep.
And someone might be listening now thinking, 8 hours is a bit ambitious. Like, I can't get that amount because you have certain commitment that might limit you in that area. So my advice for that would be to, again, just like the hydration, start small. Where can you start? If you're currently getting 6 hours sleep, can you push your goal to 6.5 hours sleep? And then can you slowly build it to 7? But as an adult, ideally, we want to be having 7 to 8 hours sleep, just so we can function, just so we can literally be in
baseline.
Yeah. So like scrap the training, scrap the wellness, just so I can literally show up and not be Mardy and not be a miserable gal, really.
Yeah, and that's really all you want.
Yeah.
I guess coming on from the topic of recovery, another really big thing is like any kind of intentional movement outside of your training. So yes, lifting weights, we love it. That's what we're talking about. But outside of that, let's not just sit at a desk all day. I know it's super hard with the majority of people's jobs at the moment, but I don't know, Jess, have you got any tips on like getting more steps in or adding in more movement outside of the gym?
So a habit I've personally started to add in, and it does help if you've got a dog, I'll be honest.
True.
But like a morning walk, because just getting out in the fresh air, especially whilst it's summer, if you're currently listening to this whilst it's summer anyway, and like it's bright outside, it's just such a nice way to start your day. Prioritizing movement first thing in the morning is key for me. And that isn't always, my training session. A walk is usually what I do 80% of the time, and I can box off 4 to 5k steps just by going out for that 20 to 30 minute walk in the morning, and it just sets your mindset for the day as well. So that would be my tip. But if you are someone that does have a very sat down job, you could maybe add in a habit to go on a lunchtime walk, or maybe as soon as you get home from work, you don't do anything else, you drop your bags in at the house or whatever, you take yourself round the block. You listen to this podcast, use it as an opportunity to take yourself around the block and go and get some steps in.
Absolutely. And I think actually going back to what you were saying about the morning, just generally for this whole thing, something I find really useful is the habit I want to do the least, get it in first thing.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just thinking about it all day. If, you find it hard to get to the gym and show up, get it in the morning, it's done. If you find it hard to get your steps in and you find yourself getting to 5 p.m. and you're like, oh, I've got loads of steps that I would like to do today, or whatever it might be, get it in the morning. It's like that saying, isn't it? Do the hardest thing first, right? Get it out of the way.
Yeah, literally get it out of the way with. And just to touch on very briefly, like, it's great that you are training and if you're taking yourself to the gym several times a week, but if you are only moving for that 1 hour training session and you are sat down for the rest of the day, let's just say you're training for 10% of the day, 90% of the day you sat down, then it's going to have a huge impact to your overall results. So just be mindful of how much you are actually moving outside of your training sessions. And just to finish on some tips on how you can add in more intentional movement, I would personally be setting a step goal. Now, you do hear the 10k literally everywhere, but it's just like we were saying about the sleep on the water. If you are currently doing 2k steps a day, set yourself a goal of 3k, slowly move it higher over time. You don't have to be doing 10k steps every day to be
not a magic number, guys.
You've just got to be doing more than you're doing now. So remember that. Next tip, let's go.
Right, nutrition. So this is like a big topic, and I think we should do a full podcast episode on this.
Yeah.
But just touching on it to kind of make it a habit. Because I feel like when you start the gym, you hear about all these things like, oh, I need to be eating more protein. And that in itself is a habit that you need to implement, right?
Yeah.
So even if it's just, tagging things on to what you already do. So let's say you already have, a mid-morning snack at work. Let's just make it a protein-dense snack.
Yeah. And with nutrition, it's just about trying to be mindful of creating balanced plates. That is where I would start with the habit side of things, like looking at each individual meal and going, have I got a source of everything that I need? Something that I use with my clients, and I just actually made it up, but I use something called the 4-tick method, and I literally ask them, have you got those 4 ticks in every meal that you make? So thinking about protein, fats, carbs, and micronutrients. And if you can just get into a habit of asking yourself that every time you create a meal, over time, your meals are going to become even more balanced. So, of course, like Ella said, we could make them higher in protein. We could do this. We could dive so deep into nutrition, and it is just such a big topic. But just making it super simple, that would be my starting point. How balanced is my plate? How balanced are my meals? Have I got those 4 things in that we need? And that is what I would be starting to build as a habit. Just balanced
For
plate.
sure. And, that even starts in the supermarket, doesn't it? Like, it's getting into the habit of putting those things in your trolley, getting into the habit of actually thinking ahead of, oh, okay, Sunday I'm going to do my shop, but I'm not just going to go to Little Tesco and get, like, food for 2 days. I'm actually going to do my weekly shop and think about and plan ahead. That's a habit to get into in itself, like with things like meal prep and prepping for the week so that you know you've got those balanced plates.
Yeah, but keep your eyes peeled, guys, because we definitely will do a whole episode on nutrition. The next habit would be mood and mental health, like you time, like prioritizing your mental health as well as your physical health. And it's great training and taking that time to prioritize your physical health and your body. But are you taking the time to prioritize your mental health and your mind as well? So maybe that is in adding in a habit every evening to log your phone off at a certain time. Maybe you put it on do not disturb so you get no notifications and have a bit of a social detox. Maybe actually make it a non-negotiable every day that you just have 20 minutes to yourself. Maybe you're a parent and you're super busy, but you can just prioritize that small amount of time to, I don't know, go for a long bath, read a book, paint your nails, whatever it is that's your
Paint
thing.
your nails.
Or maybe your training is your you time as well. So maybe they could go hand in hand, but just a habit to really, if you don't add it into your day and you don't even think about it, you can go weeks and weeks and weeks and go, you know what, I've not even had a second to myself in so long. So by just adding it in to your daily routine to be like, I just want 20 minutes boxed off for me and I do whatever I want to do for myself during that time.
Yeah, and I think like I'm actually really guilty of not doing that myself. So like don't think if you're listening that we've got all these habits down, because we don't.
No.
And like I definitely need to start thinking about that 20-minute rule. And I think I see it with clients all the time where if they're stressed with work or they've got, you know, childcare issues or whatever it might be, mental health stuff going on, training and looking after themselves is always the first thing that they immediately jump to and go, I can't do that. I couldn't possibly take 45 minutes, an hour out of my day and go to the gym. What are you talking about? But the rest of the stuff would just become so much more manageable if they did take that time out for themselves and if they did prioritize their mental health. Myself included. So it's putting that in perspective, I think, is important to maintain that habit when you really need it the most.
Yeah, definitely. So the last one, I think this one could, I know we're talking about daily habits, this one could maybe turn into more of like a weekly habit, especially if you're me, because I don't prioritize it daily. And I'll be super honest, even though maybe we should. But as, you know, as people who train regularly, we want to be prioritizing our recovery. So that's not just in the form of sleep and all the other things we talked about, to be honest, because that just kind of cover recovery in an umbrella, if you like. But I'm talking about things such as stretching, maybe hot and cold water therapy, for example, whatever it is that, you know, is your thing. But prioritizing that, maybe not daily, but adding that into a habit in some form is going to really help with your overall training and wellness as well.
Especially, yeah, with mobility, like it really actually isn't just something that helps with, you know, building good habits, moving your body. It's going to help you specifically with your lifts. Like, let's say you do some stretching or mobility or whatever it might be for your hips. That's going to help you improving your squats in the gym, especially, you know, if you do sit down all day. So, like I said, it doesn't have to be every day, but just let's say you have 3 office days every week. When you come home from your office day, you've sat at a desk all day. So just do some stretching or, you know, jump on whatever recovery suits you.
Or maybe let's take an example, you are someone who works Monday to Friday, and on a Saturday, you treat the gym as a bit of a treat. Like you put on your favourite gym outfit, you don't have to rush about, you haven't got anywhere to be. Maybe you say, every Saturday after my training session, I'm going to go sit in the sauna for half an hour. Again, whatever it is. And maybe that ticks the box of physical recovery for your training, but also the mental health and prioritizing that time for you, what we was just talking about. So you can end up putting habits together over time and really like box them off a lot easier. But we are aware that we have just thrown so much at you, and just know, like Ella said, just because we're talking about it doesn't mean that we are absolutely saints and perfect with all of this. Sometimes some habits will have to take a back seat. Say, for example, you are really focusing on your water intake. It can be quite overwhelming to then focus on amazing performance in training, amazing nutrition, and all of these things. So really just focus. My biggest guidance would be to focus on one thing and keep going and rinse and repeating it until it becomes second nature, until it becomes easy, and then think, it's called habit stacking. What else can
Yeah.
I add with that to make it easier? So just to very briefly go over that, habit stacking could be something like, okay, so I start my day with a glass of water to kickstart my hydration goal, but then alongside of that, I'm gonna use the 4 Sig method and have a balanced plate for my breakfast and have some, and make it high in protein. And before you know it, you've put the hydration and the nutrition habits together, and it just makes it so much easier.
Yeah, and with the habit stacking as well, like I think a really good tip just generally on how to implement any of these, and like you said, definitely start small, but it's bolting habits on to things that you already do. So things that are already ingrained in your daily routine, brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
Like when you're just after you finish brushing your teeth, pour yourself a massive glass of water. And that just then becomes your routine. Oh, after I brush my teeth, I go get my massive glass of water. Or whatever it is that you want to bolt on to what you're doing, whether it's going to the gym straight after work. It's doing things in a succession so your brain goes, oh, this is what we do after this.
And it's just making it as easy and as simple as possible for yourself, because that's how you'll have the most success. But to wrap up this episode, just to give you some suggestions on how you can take action even more with these tips that we have given you, my advice would be to have yourself a habit tracker. Maybe that's something that you make in the Notes app on your phone, something as simple as just listing water, steps, training, nutrition, whatever it is, and you physically tick it off every day to keep you motivated. Maybe you find a cute template on Canva or Etsy and you print yourself that off and you have that. But just accountability is key. So if you've got something like a tracker, I know my clients, they all use trackers, and I'm sure maybe yours do as well, Ella, just for certain things, so they can keep accountable. And it just helps so much to actually have something where you can physically tick something off. Plus, I just love lists. I'm a list gal, so.
And it's so satisfying when you're like, done all my things. I feel like we've covered a lot there. And like we said, I know it's a lot, but we're not perfect either. Start with one thing and see how you go with it and add from there. Have you got anything else to say before we go?
That is everything. We hope that you've enjoyed it. If you want to see anything, make sure that you do just drop it below. And don't forget to go follow us over on Instagram as well. But we appreciate you so much for coming in and listening to our episode so far. Again, we've got so many coming your way and we're only just getting started. So make sure you stick around.
And we'll see you next week for episode 5.
See you later.
Bye.